what I like, what I like, what I like. What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like live right here on Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Happy to be your host. Greetings. Welcome. If you're here live, thanks for checking this out later if that's the case. Oh, and right on time, it looks like my connection is still struggling. I really don't know what to. Anyway, but right on time, Brother Kaba, welcome. Good morning to you.
Greetings.
Thanks for joining me and
brother.
us.
Greetings, family. Missed y'all last week.
Yes, indeed. How you doing?
We're black in effect.
Right on.
And love it. And let me just say something. Let me just say something right off the top, brother.
Go ahead. Get in there.
Because I heard you the other day talking about the ADOS thing, and I know that I'm guilty of saying that I'm ADOS when it comes to American football. Okay, I'm just be very clear. I'm not talking about I'm rooting just for the American Negroes. I root for everybody black, as the saying goes, in anything, for the most part. Now we can get this when it comes to sports. I'll just say that when it comes to sports, I root for everybody black. And when it comes to real football, American football, I'm ADOS. So I just wanted to clear that up real quick.
I appreciate that, and yeah, it was all jokes, all love, and that's why I just thought it was a little funny that Giannis won the title.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to the brother. I don't know about NBA dose. Now NBA dose might have a problem with Giannis. The brother in the I guess it's a brother in the chat, but I don't have a problem with him. I think.
Anyway, peace and good morning, everybody.
Peace, y'all.
Appreciate you getting here. Please do like, share, subscribe. As the ear doctor says, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. As my man Math Hoffa on his channel says, get in here. Get in here.
You know that the go-go song, they say that, get in here. Yeah, get in here. Yeah, I get in. What was that song? I forgot the name of the song.
I don't recognize
that. It's not a go-go song. I'm all off. It's the wobble. Wobble, baby. Wobble.
Okay,
baby, wobble.
That's why I was going to say.
All of that noise, all that Negro noise is just monkey music. It all sounds the same.
Yeah, I promise folks, I have put in tremendous effort on the internet situation here, and there's again, I have even contacted StreamYard, the platform. It really is their issue that we have to work anyway, but. The G is silent, Jared. Yeah. Anyway, a lot to get into this morning. And at 9 o'clock, Sister Janelle Jolly is going to join us to talk about her podcast, What's Left, and the fact that her interview with me was recently dropped. I think it's recently dropped. I'm not going to listen to it because it was way more autobiographical than I'm used to. But and as much as I do think my personal story is interesting, it's not usually the focus I like to bring. And but she's doing a tour of interviewing people that she finds interesting on the political left. I was honored to be included, and so we're going to talk with her a little bit about that project.
She scooped
when she
me. I
gets
was
here.
trying to do that. I reached out to you to do that, and you just ignored that joint. It's like, nah, I ain't talking about me.
What happened?
I sent you way back when we first started doing this. I sent you a text, and I was like, yo, I wanted to talk about you and your work and your life and all of that. And you didn't even respond to the joint. I was like, okay, I guess the brother don't want to talk about himself. You know, I didn't want to push it.
Wow, really? I honestly,
Yeah, man.
honestly, I did not. I really did. It was not intentional. It may have been a subconscious thing.
That's what I'm saying. That's what it sounds like. I'm
down to do it. I am down to do it. I would have done it. I will do it. I don't mind doing it. I do think there are bits of my personal story that are interesting and useful, but I'm just not used to doing it. And I often don't like to. And then when I see when other hosts and other, people like use a lot of autobiography in their work, it makes me a little uncomfortable. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, they do.
Is this a joke, Mac, or did I actually miss an email from you? I can't tell anymore. If I did, I apologize. Yeah, I hear you. I appreciate that. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we can come back and do it, and we could do vice versa on that too. In fact, Kaba, I heard your show Monday, and wasn't terribly autobiographical, but you did talk a little bit about the importance of reading in your personal life. And in the transition of your wife, which was a powerful. I encourage people to check out the show. First of all, you interviewed Clyde McIlvaine, and to both of your point, it was an interview with a DC brother and longtime reader and bibliophile that doesn't get a lot autodidact and it's a kind of interview that I think. That I've always appreciated because it's with, it's as you said, like he said, it was the first time somebody asked him to be on the radio, I think.
Yeah, and he even reached out, and I've known him for years. Yeah, you're right. And I've known him for years, and he was really moved by that. And I was like, I couldn't believe it because this man is 80-something years old. He looks incredible. He's in great. He doesn't even sound like he's 80-something. I mean, looks great. He moves around like a person half his age, and he's a bibliophile. I mean, he's turned me on to many books and he's a person that always strives to actually live what he's about. So I always appreciated him as a man. And so I was surprised, but he was really moved by the fact that he was asked, which I thought was just incredible, but I appreciated the opportunity,
And it was a great discussion. So anyway, my point is I'll do it. And Mac, I see, please resend the email. I did not mean to sometimes I just miss stuff.
So I'm not alone.
Nah, man. Honestly, I can't believe. Anyway, we can come back. Let's come back to that. Yeah.
Let's come back to it.
To anybody out there, I'll just say this: if I don't respond, please send try again at least because it's not intentional. Usually,
as you used to use as your theme song. If there's anybody out there who could hear me, I'm screaming from way down here below.
Man, shout out to Tom Porter for putting me on to that. And shout out to the late Hugh Masekela for that track. Yeah. It was the perfect track for a show like that.
Yeah.
Is there anybody out there who can hear me? I'm screaming from way down here below. That track is fire. In fact, I'm gonna listen to it when we get off here. Anyway,
too.
All right, so look, definitely. Let's get to a couple things because I want to get to this HBCU thing, which was really prompted by the spokesman, the university paper at Morgan State, because the dean of the School of Journalism is retiring and leaving, and since I had already left that school under some struggle, someone reached out to me and invited me to comment on a story they were doing about the dean, and I did. And the story has not come out yet, but it did prompt me again to want to come back to this HBCU thing. It's a project that I'm still working on in long form, and we'll come back to and talk about in a minute. But also, given some what's going on in the news, I thought this was a good time to come back to that as well. So I definitely want to get to that. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to get to just very quick.
Think you froze again.
Yeah,
I think you're a little bit.
My bad. Yeah, I don't know.
No, you're back now.
Yeah, I see it now. I see it dropped off. Okay. Woo. Yeah. Anyway, you said in your conversation with Clyde, you talked about the Neil Postman book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. And all I wanted to say is that I do encourage people to read that. It is old at this point, but in the history of the media, the system of this country's media development and its impact, that book is among many that are important. And it even sort of came up on the remix the other day in terms of white sources with Kim Brown. I don't think I think it would be a mistake for us to disconnect ourselves from white sources just because they're white. Again, we don't have to accept their analysis or their worldview, but a lot of the information we should not dismiss just because the source
out
is
of
right.
hand, not out of hand.
Out of hand, at least.
You should be careful when you approach it, but you don't just dismiss it out of hand, because you can always get some good information. Good information can come from anywhere. You're not falling in love. You're not marrying the source of the information. All you want is just that you want to extract the information.
Exactly.
You're not
trying to borrow from. That's right. And to borrow from CBS, there are plenty of raggedy black writers as well. So we can't just automatically assume. And a lot of them are very well funded and well placed, a point to which we will return, by the way. But anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to quickly point that out. Another thing here, we're not going to cover it this morning, but I do want to encourage people, speaking of white sources, that we joke a lot about Jimmy Dore. He's not the only white source that I go to. There is the Status Quo News channel work that I would like to see BPM start doing in our context. But they're in the street and they cover a lot of stories at a grassroots level that aren't being discussed. And this one in particular, they have led in dropping a bombshell, as they've said here, about the Flint water crisis cover-up that almost nobody's talking about, including a lot of in the black press. So I want to encourage people to, at least check out Status Quo News and check out this story and catch themselves up on what has actually gone on in Flint. And as they report in that story, the Detroit Free Press, the large outlet in that area, has said they're not interested in covering the story. Which is focused on Governor Snyder's cover up and the pollution of largely black and poor communities in Flint. So that's just one quick piece I wanted
that Obama
to
and was and did that stunt with the faking drinking the water. We can't forget
Drink
that.
the water, man.
Instead, it's the water's okay. Come on in, the water's fine. So, but we were so
did it
happy
twice.
And to your last point about having a black sources in terms of being raggedy black
there
writers,
it is, right?
raggedy black leaders, so-called misleaders, Negro misleaders. So, yeah.
Similarly, just want to quickly shout out the working people at the Frito-Lay company, the $1 billion company, who are forcing people to work in 4-hour shifts because they've realized that after the second 4 hours, you're less productive. And instead of recognizing that all of us could be put on shifts like that in turn.
Oh, you froze up. You freezing, breaking up.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that you're back.
Yeah, it's crazy because this time I didn't even see the lag on my end. Like I didn't even see the warning on this end. I don't know, man. There's something really, I have even done more this morning to prepare, given that I knew it was just us and not the whole remix crew. And it's got to be StreamYard. We're gonna have to really address this anyway. But the 4-hour shifts.
I think you froze up. You froze up one more time. All I heard was 4-hour shifts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just gonna be one of those mornings, I guess. 4-hour shifts to maximize the productivity of workers, and instead of paying people much more than they are paid, sharing the wealth more widely that is being helped in being created for these multi-billion-dollar companies. They're forcing people to work what they call suicide shifts, because it's not just you work 4 hours and go home. You work 4 hours and then I forgot the details, but you have to come back after, after a short break, and come back a lot of times at 3, 4 in the morning. So they're on strike. So as I was raised, you don't cross a picket line. So not that we visit that shelf very often as it is, but there will be no more Doritos and like brands purchased by this family anytime soon. And I would encourage others to support that strike as well. So
I've been, to your point, I've been striking them forever. So,
yeah,
so
I mean,
that's easy. That's easy for me. I've been on
some
strike.
things are easier done, right? Not every bit of that. Yeah, exactly.
Walmart, all of them. I've been on strike with Walmart about 10, 15 years at least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
and there you go again. As Ronald Reagan said, there you go again. There you go again. So I think Dr. Ball is trying to get it back together. Okay.
Yeah. I
think you're back.
I apologize to everybody. I really do apologize to everybody. Look, I can't keep, I really don't want to have to keep repeating this, but I did all the tests this morning. I've added mesh. I've done, there's nothing else running. Everything else works perfectly. I mean, there's nothing else going on. There's really no reason for this. It's even fully hitting the computer. Like, there's no lag on the computer itself that I'm using. So I don't know.
And Ethernet, you see, I thought I heard you say that Ethernet cable is not an option.
It's not an option in our household setup, and it's the man. And yeah, the Ethernet is not an option in the setup that we have.
Trying to keep you down.
Yeah. And it really shouldn't be. There's so much Wi-Fi driven to this computer right now. It's crazy. I'm probably like radiating myself on some level. I don't even know if that's part of it, but I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
While I'm here, let me at least raise this for you to respond to, since your internet connection is strong. A long time this has been, discussed, I know, in communities and in barbershops, but why is Jerry West still the logo for the NBA? Now, I know there was some controversy at one point because I think the famous Jordan symbol, Air Jordan symbol that people thought should be the replacement, is actually a Nike product, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they own it.
So they would have to come up with something else, but at least the advertising community is beginning to listen more to this question. And plus there was more discussion of Rachel Nichols and whatever that way. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. There should be a new the NBA logo. To your point, NBA, A. Dawson and all of that should be a brother, right?
I mean, at least if they're gonna go the Jerry West era, they should at least have like a brother with a fro or something like that, to make sure that it's a black man,
like a Dr. J,
like a Dr. J
coming from the free throw line.
Yeah, I mean, at least but the Jordan one, that's the first one that I think a lot of people that comes to mind for a lot of people. That's the first one that came to mind for me was Michael Jordan. But of course, like you said, Nike owns that, and they would have to pay a pretty penny for that. So that's probably not going to happen. But I wonder who they would use though, and what image they would use, because there's nothing more iconic than that Jordan. And I'm not a fan of Jordan the man, his politics or anything like that. But as a player, I mean, you got to give it up. Maybe Steph Curry or somebody. I don't know.
Oh man, I appreciate. I need a power line adapter. Okay. All right. Okay. I appreciate that, Uncle Devin. Yeah, man. Uncle Devin is a beast, by the way.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody knows that already, but and Saturday mornings are about to get a little doper here on BPM too. As a result.
Like back in the day, we used to have to wait till Saturday morning for the cartoons. We got to
remember that. I mean, that was the whole point of wanting to do that. So check this out. So we don't have to spend too much time with this, but I just want to let everybody know that folks are back at it again. My Google alert let me know that some more buying power nonsense is being promoted. And sure enough, here in the Atlanta Black Star, for whom I briefly worked as a columnist, y'all should call me back.
Wow.
Because your journalism is slipping. And I could, immediately help with bad stories like these. So it's just another attempt to get, people to pledge, get white corporations and white, bigger white companies to support a 15% pledge to invest in Black owned businesses. But of course, and even in some, I'm definitely not the one to talk, but they need some editing help here too, because there's a little a typo here. According to the pledge, Black, I'm sure they meant people, not propose or I don't even make up just 15% of the population, yet they carry a buying power of more than 3 trillion. So this is even their attempt to regurgitate the myth. They've got a typo here, and they've misrepresented the number there, because in the link here they just linked to an old Selig Center report that we've already debunked, that claims it's 1.2 trillion, not 3 trillion. But anyway, so the buying power stuff is regurgitated again,
and the internet
on so many levels.
The internet has been regurgitating again in a second, but you're back though.
And the internet froze me again.
Yeah, just for a second.
Yeah,
but you're back.
Okay.
I got.
Anyway,
because I had something I wanted to do. I don't know if I could share the screen.
Yeah, go ahead.
From my side or not. I don't even have done this before. Okay, so let me see.
If you can't, just send me the link in a private chat.
Okay.
Yeah, send me the link and I'll get to it. Hold up. Can I not share this? Hold up. Let me share this real quick. Shout out to Nathaniel Turner. Appreciate that. He's I guess that's $5 on my internet connection.
You got 5 on it.
But appreciate you got 5 on it, literally. But I appreciate that. And good morning.
Can you see that?
Were you sending me something?
Well, I was trying to share.
Nope.
No, you're not getting it. Okay. See,
I don't see the share either.
Okay. Well, I'll just have to send it to you. But it's an incredibly crazy story, and I'll send it to you right now. Yeah, it's an incredibly crazy story that I just
put it in the private chat, and I'll open the link. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll do that. All right. So I'll just copy it here, and send it in the chat. Yeah, but it's a crazy story. I mean, you're gonna think it's like a Saturday Night Live skit. Sometimes I see stuff that's so crazy, I'm like, it's got to be Saturday. Somebody got to jump out and say, it's Saturday night, live from New York City. It's Saturday night. You should be able to see it.
Yep.
Yeah,
but no, I had this up. Oh, yeah, we both were going to do this anyway, so this is perfect. I was going to come. I had this on my notes too, so let's just do it. Let's just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Whoops. Let me get that off of there.
That always comes up
because we got to be able to see this. Go ahead, man.
So a white woman has a pre-wedding photo shoot with a Black man on a plantation and says that he is no longer a slave because he's now part of the family. You see him with the shackles on and with the captive attire on, and then they're looking at each other lovingly. And then there's like a whole series of this, not just one picture, it's like a photo shoot. And this is like this year, like this is happening, where they're
they don't have the whole thing here.
If you go down, you see the little red button on the right. We just went past it. Go up a little bit, right there.
Okay.
And you can do next, and you can look at the different pictures there. But they did a whole photo shoot, a whole spread of them, of a plantation theme of them being together and getting married, and the fact that he's no longer a slave because he got the prize. He got a white woman, so he's in there. He made it. He moved on up to the east side to the deluxe apartments, and then this guy. So yeah, that's just that. And then of course they had the black football player with his white woman. But that's
Is that really what that story is? DeAndre Hopkins has a white girlfriend?
No, it's not DeAndre Hopkins. But I think they just linked that because he had another. He credited his girlfriend, white girlfriend, and then there's another one with RG3 saying he's glad his wife doesn't have a white girl booty and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, so it's just a whole lineage of nonsensical Negro shenanigans that are going on. So yeah, but what was your take? You said you had penned it too. So what was your take on it?
Well, in part, I was gonna. I'll just pull it up real quick. I'm not gonna play the clip, but because I watch the Comedy Hype channel all the time.
Mm-hmm.
To watch, and as I see, man, I see I'm freezing again, right? So
you froze. Well, you're back now.
Yeah, it's crazy, frustrating. The sunken place. Peace, Darren. Good morning. I won't play the clip, but my man Pierre, the first thing he starts off with when they come to him and ask him his thoughts on it is he does this whole joke, because of course, because as I like to say, I want to be I want to be to Black liberation or Black studies or Black politics what Pierre is to comedy, Black comedy. So he starts off by making a joke about seeing the picture of this picture and saying mama, papa, mother, father, which I thought was a silly, it was kind of silly, but also kind of funny. But that was it. And yeah, that was it. I'll just leave it there. That was really it. It was a bad joke. He made a bad joke. I was going to make a worse joke, but the internet is kind of, killing the timing. So, but anyway, but yeah, I think that, what can I say? I mean, it's what else? I don't even know what to say.
I don't think much needs to be said. I think it speaks for itself. It's just nuts that in this day and age that first of all, I'm not really surprised that the white woman would do that. I'm not surprised at anything that white people, quite frankly, when it comes to those kinds of things. But I'm surprised when you have a Black person. I don't even care if it was 100 years ago who would do that. Who would actually think that that's a good idea. And then his family, like where's his family? Like where are his friends? Like I just don't understand the Black people in this brother's space, if there are any, and maybe they're not any Black. Maybe he doesn't have any Black folks in his space. Maybe he's really in that sunken place where he's just like totally cut himself off. But I just don't understand how any Black person would do that. Even a Black person who's, I wouldn't even see somebody like a Clarence Thomas or Reverend what's his name? The one I'm always talking about. I forgot his name, but anyway, I don't see any of these Negroes, these leading buck dancing Negroes, even doing that sinking that low. So it's just amazing to see that.
Yeah, Jesse Lee Peterson, right? Well, even the sister that hosts Tiffany Thompson, is it Symphony Thompson or Tiffany Thompson?
I don't even know who she is.
Or Thomas. Man, I'm messing that up. But anyway, the sister that hosts Comedy Hype, she made that point and was asking, like, was nobody there at the photo shoot able to be like, we should reconsider this? Nobody. Like you bring nobody in his family.
Cool. Yeah.
Even somebody in her family might have been able to be like, I don't know if this is.
He's no longer a slave. Right. He's not a slave anymore because he's married to me. He's married to me. But I think they actually verbalized something that on maybe a subconscious, unconscious level. I'm not a psychologist and I don't play one on the internet, but maybe on some kind of unconscious level, some people think that, Black or white, they think that that's a step up. They've arrived. They've been liberated because they've gotten with a white person. Maybe not in every case, but certainly in many cases, we can see that. And we hear people like Trick Daddy say stupid stuff. He said something real stupid a while back about that. And others have said things as well. So I think, they're really just kind of just putting in our face what a lot of people actually believe and think, because that's where we are right now. Everything is, there's no nuance nowadays. Everything is straight up in your face. Everything is extremely provocative. And I think that's what we're looking at right now. Here we go. Speaking of
Well, I was just
provocation.
going to say, speaking of being in your face and being honest, you know, for all the push 'em lefters and all of
There we
that,
go.
just letting you know, we missed this the other day, but Biden, you know, is bombing Africa just like his former boss, and like everybody else, he's just continuing the same old, same old. So for those who kept saying, you know, we could push him left and this is going to be an advance and that we have to vote for him to stop fascism.
I'm just, I think he froze again, but I'm just amazed that every 4 years we hear that same old nonsense, and people really believe themselves when they say that kind of thing about the Democrats, because you can just insert any Democrat and you hear the same old arguments that we can't let the Republicans in, we got to stop fascism, we got to preserve the rights, but what about the federal judges and so on and so forth. So, you know, it's the whole trope of excuses that people try to use to remain comfortable on the plantation as opposed to burning it down.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, yeah, just wanted to quickly mention that as well before we move on to, and that was it. We move on to the actual business of the day. This question of HBCUs. So let me you know, I'll try to keep pushing through. I think I'm freezing up again.
Oh, you're good right now.
No, I'm seeing I'm seeing the thing drop. So I just don't understand. I really don't understand what else anyway. But so like I said, the other day, not only had we seen Felicia Rashad be appointed as dean at Howard University, we had seen the fine arts department, right? Thank you. And we saw Professor Nikole Hannah-Jones decide to move, or someone pointed out, take her talents to Howard University. On the heels of that,
not two, not three, not.
I'm not going to win just one Pulitzer. Or as the haters might say, I'm not going to have just one brand new category of Pulitzer Prize created for me to win. I'm going to have two. Anyway,
speaking of haters, real quick. Monday after the show, Monday, I was driving down K Street, and Roland Martin crossed the street right in front of my car. I saw Roland Martin on Monday crossing the street. And I was like, I was about to say, hey, Roland, man, why you keep hating on the Black Power Media channel? But I didn't say that. I just let him. But it was Roland Martin. I was like, okay, check him out. Roland Martin walking up K Street.
He's in these streets.
He's in the streets, yeah. But I'm sorry, go ahead. You said hater, and I just got triggered. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Right. No, that's, you know, I mean, that's perfectly appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
This is funny. That was fun. I just caught this right here. Leave my man Ben alone. Ben is good people, man. We just don't agree.
Well, y'all cold, boy.
These politics. Yeah, it's rough out here.
It's
anyway, so but then on the heels of all that news, I got this email from a staff writer, student writer for the spokesman at Morgan State University, wanting to do you know, I don't know, what do they call it? I don't know, a piece about the dean who's retiring at the School of Journalism, and was encouraged to reach out to me and some others to get a more you know, well-rounded view. So I'm on the list of people who have been overtly critical, and you know, it's I'm not breaking any news here, at least in the sense that everything I've, you know, what I'm about to say or will say or said in that interview and will say in the future, I've actually said to the dean himself, to the president, to the board, to several provosts, to a whole bunch of people, to no avail, really. But I thought it was all and to some, you know, self-harm or detriment, I might say, as well. But I'm a glutton for self-defense.
I'm joking, man. Yeah.
No, but straight up, because that is in some ways that is often the response and it's true that you do have to be willing to take certain levels of punishment.
Yeah,
when because
when you're principled, you stand on principle, you will take punishment. You should have an understanding of that before you get it, because some people don't. They think it's a game, and then they get smacked up, and then they're like, "Damn, what happened? What you hit me for? Like, you stepped in the ring, fool. Well, you know where you was at."
So
people don't understand that.
And because I am, and I know, only reason I like to say it because I know it upsets folks over there so much. I am not only tenured, but the first full professor in the School of Journalism and the School of Global Journalism and Communication at Morgan State University.
Okay.
And at the time I left, I was the only PhD in journalism. I believe they might have just hired one as I was leaving, but in other words, they weren't. But anyway, that was sort of the point. The point I'm getting at is that was where we would start with this conversation. Is that actually that's not where I want to start with where I wanted to end. I want to remind everybody or encourage everybody that this discussion I'm having here is part of an ongoing long form project. I'm going to build and produce at some point. Titled Not a Different World, HBCUs Not a Different World, and which is going to include my full experience and story, but I want to put it in the context of many others. So it's not just me whining and complaining, but also putting it into more context, because some of it is, particular to me and my attitude and behavior and politics. It's not all just, and it could be argued that in not in all instances was my behavior the best suited for what I want as an outcome. I'll put it that way. I wouldn't say I was wrong, but tactically, and then, I do like for people to, I only like for people to be reminded that it's doctor because I'm still paying for it. That's why that's my own joke. But okay. So I want to invite people. I'm going to have at imixwhatilike.org. I think I'm freezing up again, or at imixwhatilike.org. Shortly after this show ends, there will be, and in perpetuity going forward, there will be a link that I'm going to have there for folks that I'm inviting you to catch on to, and I will continue going forward. Invite people to catch on to link on to. To submit your story, your version of your experience, whether you were student, staff, faculty, admin, parent of an HBCU student. I want to hear from you and engage in some dialogue. So I have a form of questions, a questionnaire, so to speak, that you can fill out and we can begin. I would like to, you can be anonymous if you like. It's in other words, I want to have, and already the stories and interviews I've done and collected are fascinating. And the point being, at least initially, one of the questions, for instance, to what extent did the TV show A Different World influence your engagement with the HBCU, however you engage as a faculty, student, admin, parent, etc.? Did it not? Or if not that, because of, maybe a generational difference, was it any other pop cultural reference that encouraged you, or was it the familial thing? I'm a daughter or a son or a family member of an HBCU, and then, of course, we'll bring in some of the academic. We'll get to that in a little bit here, but some of the literature about the HBCUs and then try to put this together to give a more honest and accurate discussion of what goes on there. So for me, I won't go into too much detail now, but the crux for me around Not a Different World is that for many, the idea of the HBCU is that it is a different world, that it is, it's not the PWI or predominantly white institutional experience. It is where Black people can get culture, and I think in an often misunderstood way can get radical in inspirational preparation for the world. And that's not historically what HBCUs have been here to do, and I don't think that's their function today.
Nope.
And that many of us toil there, particularly as faculty, but also as staff, admin, etc. Underneath that mythology, without the reality of our experiences being much known or understood. So let me invite you, Kaba, to jump in initially with any first thoughts, but then I want to get to this article that came out in the Chronicle of Higher Education as another jumping off point for this discussion.
No, just real quick. I mean, in terms of HBCUs, you know, I went to one. I didn't go right out of high school, but I definitely was influenced by a different world, you know, which was airing while I was in high school for the most part, and ended after I had already graduated. But it was certainly influential in my going to an HBCU. I had already started kind of on this journey being African centered and all of that. And I talked about that ad nauseum here and other places. But so I went there with a certain expectation that, you know, there would be a certain level of politics, a certain level of consciousness there. And of course, I went to like one of the most snooty, you know, bougie HBCUs that actually Hillman was based on, which I didn't know at the time. But Hillman was actually based on Hampton University in Virginia. It was a school supposedly in Virginia. It was based on Hampton. And I didn't realize that. I had never even been to Hampton. Neither one of my parents had gone to college. I have an older sister. She went for a few years, didn't complete college. So I didn't have a lineage of people going to college. There was not a tradition of going to college. I always joke and say my father got a full ride to the University of Vietnam for 2 tours. So it's just a blessing that I'm even here. But
about that, yeah.
But really, but you know, but there was that. But so my expectations of going to an HBCU were that it was going to be, you know, black, like black politically, and I was in for a rude awakening. But the flip side of that was I was able to sharpen my sword in my arguments because I knew that I was going to have to come ready to. I couldn't just come in there with some barbershop talk and just be talking and just saying anything, because people would challenge you. Like these people, their politics may be off, but they will challenge you, and you have to come with the facts. So that made me actually stronger. So in a kind of crazy way. But again, that's just me as opposed to the collective being stronger. I've been thrown out of classes, you know, things like that for arguing with the professors and things. But it was a great experience I had, and it was people like Malcolm that gave me the strength and the confidence to know that if you stand on the truth, you can come in there and you can debate anybody, as long as you stand on the truth and you know what you're talking about. So that was my situation.
Absolutely. So I see a lot of folks with HBCU experiences. I definitely want to encourage you to, you know, submit your, and everybody in the chat as well. It's almost done. The link will be up right after we get off air at imakeswhatilike.org. But anyway, let me pull this article up that came out in the Chronicle of Higher Education the other day, which I think is really strong. It's titled "The Pernicious Fantasy of the Nikole Hannah-Jones Saga. Her Success is Not a Collective Victory for Black Academics," by Jason England. Anyway, so one of the points here that he writes, the prevailing fantasy was that Hannah-Jones's personal revenge was every academic's dream come true and a victory for Black academics in particular. But the Black academics I know harbor dreams of simply finding a job, ideally a stable one, without an overwhelming course load in a department with the least possible dysfunction. Forget about tenure. The statistics for Black faculty members achieving that coveted status are damning and depressing. Millions of dollars of funding from anonymous donors, the support of prominent figures, formidable philanthropic institutions and media outlets, a litany of job opportunities on which to fall back. That's a step beyond a pipe dream, so far from the realm of possibilities for most Black academics, and it's difficult to see any germane lesson to glean, and certainly no collective victory. So I'm starting here because I wanted to start with England's piece here, because he's not talking specifically about HBCUs, but the Black academic experience more broadly speaking, because one of the points I want to get to is that, again, the theme is that HBCUs are not a different world. That's so true. This broader picture he's painting here of the Black academic experience is exactly correct. It's horrific. The amount of Black PhDs is minuscule. The amount of Black PhDs or Black faculty with tenure is minuscule. The amount of freedom these Black faculty have to do actual, strong critical work is again minimal. We are often, whether at HBCUs or not, overworked. 4 course loads, 3 course loads. People, again, outside of academia, you have to understand most of the people you're familiar with, the Cornell Wests, the Skip Gates, the Dysons, whoever you see on TV, Nikole Hannah-Jones, they are not teaching 4 classes a semester. They are not teaching 150 students a semester. They are not working without TAs and office assistants and research grants, and they're not working with these things. I should say, are not working.
Look at Manning Marable. I mean, he had a whole cadre of TAs and GAs, graduate assistants and people working with him. Not saying that he produced any good work with that, but look at, his situation was a prime example of what you're talking about.
And rare. So again, whatever we may think of the outcome of the work, that's another level of the discussion. My own included. I put, I submit myself for criticism there as well. But my point is, whatever we think of anybody's work, it's that context that we have to start with.
And speaking of context, it really relates to that Frida-Lay, the plight of Black academics. It really relates to that Frida-Lay story that you're talking about. That they get they on an inverse level, like they got their hours cut. But of course, they get their money cut, and then they have to kind of work even more the different times of the day. They don't necessarily know what time they're going to come in and all of that. And the Black academics typically have to work more and don't get as much money. And then they don't get job security, just like those people don't get job security. Some of them don't even have health insurance. I didn't know that until, talking to some people who weren't full professors, didn't know that. So it's pretty much the same situation, because it comes from the same system, which is exploitation, which is capitalism, which is, which needs to be destroyed and overturned.
You're right. And in fact, we should always, if not start there, be reminded of the fact that we are in this highly colonialist, capitalist, white supremacist, etc., imperial by design and function, and all these institutions are meant to serve that function for sure. So you are right about that. Let me know if I drop off again or just jump in. I see my signal dropping again. But anyway, but this part here I also appreciated from England's piece, as he writes the story.
And you dropped off there.
About Hannah-Jones, a talented journalist who produced historical analysis. Okay, am I back?
You're back now.
I can't even tell anymore.
You're back.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, no, it's really crazy. Like I don't even see the signal. And even when it shows, anyway. Anyway. This, as he writes here, the story for me isn't about Nikole Hannah-Jones, a talented journalist who produced a historical analysis that even her critics have to admit moved the needle of public discourse. It's about how the media framed her tenure struggle and how so many of us are so eager to substitute the latest cause célèbre for real collective progress. It's about how social media protagonists confuse their own stories for social justice narratives. It's about how we understand Black uplift, progress, and renaissance at a time when those terms have been made as hollow and ubiquitous as a Twitter hashtag. That, again, says a lot about the context in which we're working here. And as I'll come to in a minute, that the HBCU does not unfortunately.
Let me say something real quick on that point, and
please,
that within this system that we're talking about, this exploitative, this capitalist, this white supremacist, white terror dominated society, you're going to always have exceptions to the rule. There's always going to be a few people who are going to be able to, from the oppressed groups, who are going to be able to kind of, do okay or be successful. And unfortunately, what happens is what you just read, is that those people become almost like a symbol for a lot of our people that see this is a proof that we can make it, and so we live vicariously through the exceptional people who are exceptions to the rule, as opposed to looking at the rule itself, which excludes most of us.
That's it. Now this line, this sentence that I have here in purple, I made it. I highlighted it in a different color from my own memory for the purpose of making a point that what he says here about white universities, I think, in a very real sense, is mimicked at minimum by class within Black universities. And that is to say, as he writes here, white people can afford the titillating delusion of Black radicalism and Renaissance. They traffic in Black celebrity, intellectuals, and mascots, whom they promote to validate their own moral innocence as well as their bona fides as allies. It's almost literally the least they can do. They can also use these mascots to antagonize and browbeat their bad white counterparts. It's a tired act, but it makes for profitable theater. And my point here is that within the HBCU, the same type of thing happens. If we substitute white people for Black bourgeoisie, for instance, we could just read the same paragraph more or less in the same way. The Black bourgeoisie can afford the titillating delusion of Black radicalism and Renaissance. They traffic in Black celebrity, intellectuals, and mascots, whom they promote to validate their own moral innocence as well as their bona fides as allies. Mm-hmm. I mean, they do the exact same thing at Black universities. They hire people for celebrity reasons. They have that don't necessarily have any academic credentials or track records or work, who don't even necessarily care about the students.
Yeah, I see it all the time. You see artists, and you know, we love hip hop and everything. And I ain't gonna say no names, but we know that there are artists and producers who are able to have teach classes at Ivy League universities. And they don't really have the credentials to do so, other than the fact that they are celebrities. I've even seen that here on a local level at one of the local HBCUs around here, where people were able to, certain media figures were given jobs at these places because of the fact that they had a certain profile. So we see that as well.
And this is why I'll bring it up here again. I created this satirical Twitter thread a little while ago, starting with based on what someone else had done about their fantasy of an HBCU. And I was saying, well, you need to see what the real HBCU looks like. So I started with this one here, a former acting star who hates teaching and his students and is only there because he can't find regular work in Hollywood. Hates that he is an HBCU and not at least at NYCU film school. Cusses at his students and colleagues and cares nothing about tenure. I mean, this is literally the experience I've had and witnessed with several so-called former celebrities. Some I've even liked as in my childhood, who end up in my faculty meetings, literally whining about how they aren't being respected.
What Kanye West does when he's complaining about being accepted.
Their fellow faculty aren't worth anything. Wait, say that again? I broke up again. Not even hearing you. I don't know which one of us is frozen, but I didn't hear any of that. And I still don't hear you. You're muted. You're muted, brother. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you. But say that again, because I missed all of that.
I was saying it's the same thing that happened to Kanye.
And what's wrong? What happened to your mic? Is that my fault? Is this my connection?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
I don't hear you. I can barely hear you anymore.
You can barely hear me. All right. So I think we're talking too much about things they don't want us to talk about. Stepping on some toes. Let me see.
Yeah, your mic switched. Even folks in the chat are saying your mic switched.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me. Must have come out. Oh, there it is. Can you hear me now?
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, it somehow it came out. But I was saying that he's what you explained is the same thing that happened with Kanye West when he's always complaining about white folks not accepting him because he wanted, he famously used to go on these rants on stage. I'm Walt Disney. I need y'all to express, the one, you don't have all the answers, Sway, that we went off on Sway and Sway was about to knock him out. But he
was right to answer, Sway.
So that was a deal with him. But also Nikole Hannah-Jones.
Although
I would say Nikole Hannah-Jones too, just real quickly, she wanted that gig in North Carolina at UNC, and she settled for Howard because she knew she could always fall back on the black. She can always fall back down. So there's another point to what you just made.
Well, I have no inside knowledge of this, and I haven't seen anything. But based on my own experience, it may also be that Howard came with an offer that far surpasses what even North Carolina would have brought, and far surpasses what other faculty there are being paid.
But the prestige of being at the UNC, you know, because she wasn't looking for that at all.
No doubt.
Other than the fact that, you know, it was a brand name, and she wanted that position very badly, and she would have stayed there if they would have given her tenure.
No, that's right. And that was sort of my point about in that Twitter thread, that a lot of the folks that end up at HBCU, but a lot of the black faculty are, see, it's not even showing on my end that there's an issue.
Now you're back.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's crazy. It's not even showing on my end that there's a problem at all. So I have no idea what's going on. This is like a new and increasingly worsening problem. I don't understand. Anyway, I'll just keep going until I can't, I guess. But that the folks who end up at HBCUs, a lot of the faculty are not wanting to be there. They're not. They wish they were somewhere else. They think they deserve to be somewhere else. They think they're doing everybody there a favor, and they're miserable. And it reflects in their performance. It reflects in their attitude and their interaction with students. It reflects in their certain.
Oh, you froze again. You're freezing. But I think you're right. They want to be a big fish. They don't, you know, they want to be a big fish in a small pond, but they don't have enough resources in the pond, and so they're frustrated there. It's like they rather be disrespected at a better plantation than getting a lot of respect in a smaller plantation, which would be the black. You know, it's like Malcolm said, they want to be. I'm the only one on my job. I'm the only one in my neighborhood. Or you're nothing but a house Negro. You know, which is what one a mayor down in Atlanta, I mean not Atlanta, but Alabama, called a council member in one Alabama town, called him called her a house N-word in front of some white council members.
We covered that on the remix yesterday and played the video and all of that.
Yeah, so
yeah, I mean. So just so folks know, our other guest, Sister Janelle, is here. I'm just begging her forgiveness and asking her to give me a little bit of more time here, because
give me just a little more time.
Yeah, in part because the internet is not cooperating, and I want to get a little bit more to this. But just a few more minutes here. Coming back to this England article from the Chronicle of Higher Education, as he writes here, my black friends and colleagues are far more cynical and frustrated. Their prevailing sentiment, let me back up. But Black mascot excite explains the vastly different reactions I get from friends. Oh man, damn. Sorry again, everybody.
You back?
Am I back?
Yeah, you back.
This is crazy. Okay. Many of the white ones are eager and beaming when they discuss the Amanda Gormans and non-black minorities like Lin-Manuel Mirandas of the world. But my black friends and colleagues are far more cynical and frustrated. Their prevailing sentiment is that we have too much to lose to continue to indulge silliness and empty symbolism. They want collective improvement for Black Americans, not an invitation to root for a metaphorical hero in the latest media-generated movie. They want tangible change, not abstract renaissance. Now, see, this is the frustrating part for me. Even at the HBCUs, or in my own personal experience, witnessing so many committed, talented, loving faculty who give a damn about the Black community, who want to work in a Black community, who want that Black collective change, have their careers destroyed, marginalized, ruined in some cases, in favor of celebrity types, of some promotional campaign, of some sort of some sort of other sort of symbolic move. And you see people get written up in newspapers. They get get invited to the White House in some cases, representing these HBCUs, and realizing and knowing underneath it. So somebody put out on Twitter the other day a tweet tagging me and Dr. Burrows, Todd Stephen Burrows, who used to be my colleague at Morgan State. We literally shared joining all for a couple of years. It was the most fun I've ever had at a job. While all these other things might be going wrong around us, to be able to work with one of your best friends right next door, bop, 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 whoop, 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 with some other colleagues, it was fantastic. He was removed. He could have adjusted himself for sure, but instead of courting this nationally known, leader of Black journalism, he was removed.
Yeah.
And yet on Twitter the other day, somebody, not knowing any better, tags me and Dr. Burroughs and Morgan State saying, it's like with that mind blow emoji saying, Morgan State gave us both Dr. Burroughs and Ball. And I'm sitting there saying, that's not what happened. In fact, the dean that I was just asked to interview about fired Dr. Burroughs, wouldn't renew his contract, and then went up gave a press conference to announce the new school of journalism and took credit for our work.
Wow.
While cutting him on one end, went up there on the podium and said, we have some of the finest scholars producing work around Malcolm X in our school. And then he proceeded to have a meeting with me in which he said, Dr. Ball, you could be our Dr. Cornel West or Dr. Dyson, but not in my school.
And besides, and I was like, what is that? And besides, you would need an Afro wig anyway. So I mean, I don't know if that would work. How that would work out. I mean, actually, it might work for you, man. You would look a lot like what's the brother Derek Hamilton. Y'all kind of anyway.
Damn it with this internet. Anyway, so anyway, that just little things like that, man.
Yeah, but
I continue to struggle.
I just remember one of my favorite professors when I was at Hampton, Dr. Beverly John. May she rest in peace. She rise in power. She passed about a year or so ago. She ended up having to leave. One of the great professors. I mean, she was a sociology professor. She ended up having to leave and go to Chicago and taught until she passed away, I think about a year or so ago. But she was a good one. But then to the flip side, going back to your kind of white ally kind of thing, even on the faculty, that's true, because there was one white professor who was also a sociology professor, and he used to bring all kinds of, really good information. And he and I used to debate here and there on some stuff, because he was white, so I still had to check him on certain stuff, certain takes he would have on Black nationalism. He didn't really care much for, but he was able to say all kinds of radical stuff about Samuel Chapman Armstrong, who was one of the white founders of Hampton. He would talk about his campaigns in Hawaii, which were good. It was some good information. Talked about how he was instrumental in decimating, that population, the native population there, and taking over and all of that stuff. And he talked about Lincoln and his workings with the trail, with all kinds of different things, atrocities that he was a part of that people don't talk about. And he was able to say all those things. He was able to be, as a white man, he was able to be radical at an HBCU. Yet the black professors who were trying to be radical weren't allowed to do that. So I just found that to be interesting too. And the black people who would argue with me would say, would turn around and say, but did you hear what his name was Dr. Rosenthal. Did you hear what Dr. Rosenthal did? I said, I said the same stuff, but when I say it, it's a problem. But when he says it's okay. It's like white boys doing as well as success. If I start doing it well, it's suspect, as most deaf would say.
That's it.
Yeah, I seen Babe say.
First of all, shout out to Kalanji in the chat and welcome Cognac Turner
Cognac.
to the I was going to say, is that Dr. James? Is that Dr. James? His alter ego, JT. Shout out to Dr. James Turner, man, and his family. I hope he's doing well, recovering well. Anyway, I love that man, Love that man. Anyway, just real. First of all, that's another aspect of this that we'll be covering in this project eventually, this HBCU project that I'm building, the white faculty and administrator at HBCUs. They are often more vocal, more feeling of their privilege and of the sort of rights that they know they as faculty are supposed to have, and are often more vocal, even in the correct political way, than many Black faculty in some cases, which is also, but they're also just as guilty as others, as I've been talking about, of feeling like I don't deserve to be here and I'm doing you all a favor. you know, and I really wouldn't want to be here if I had a choice. But anyway, but just quickly wrapping up
I
with
had a
this
white
England
professor
piece.
that used to say just that. She used to say just that, and she used to also say that the work I'm having y'all do, y'all are helping me get my PhD. She had a master's.
Yeah, no question.
So
No
y'all are helping
question.
me get my PhD. She was straight up. But I kind of respected the game. I respect the game when you just straight up like that. I you know, I may not like it, but I respect it.
Absolutely. But as England points out here, this sort of praise for the spectacle and for the symbolic achievement of one that stands in for all of us. As he writes here, this has created a bottleneck effect among Black public intellectuals who are competing to make the same obvious points about the most accessible issues and to argue passionately against the most extreme foils. It incentivizes shamelessness, self-promotion, and shallow discourse. He's fallen by the wayside. For example, Patrisse Cullors, Black Lives Matter, blah, 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 blah. The Black public intellectual class was nowhere to be found. Now, I highlighted that line because Brother England just needs to expand his own media range and get over here to Black Power Media, because we were all over the Patrisse Cullors issue. Last Dope Intellectual, I had something to say. I believe it came up a couple times on Renegade Culture. I believe it even Dr. Sundiata talked. So we were all over that joint. So Brother England, you know, expand your range beyond the Chronicle and some of these mainstream outlets, and you'll find those of us out here doing some of the work that you're talking about, which speaks to the very point I'm getting at, that he's getting at, that there are people in these spaces who are suppressed and not given attention, and those of us who are not willing to do what he was just, you know, accusing many others in Black public sphere spaces for doing, don't get recognized or recognized for it. Anyway, and I think I'm freezing up again. Or is that okay? Anyway, but as he says here, to be clear, I don't think Nikole Hannah-Jones is a bad faith actor or grifter, but the media's framing of her story illuminates how ideas become secondary to symbols and how that formula is replicated by people who are bad faith actors and grifters. He goes on to give this Jay-Z example when he was working with R. Kelly. You know, in the album, you know, about the fantasy of the Black Renaissance for the rest of us, which is basically what Jay-Z's whole career is. But then he ends here, or I'm going to end here with England's piece on this point here. Wait a second, just real quick. This is sort of my point also about HBCUs and Not a Different World, that the popular commercial projection of HBCUs often creates this misunderstanding as well, where the media frames HBCUs in a way that illuminates the same issue of secondary symbols being promoted, what is actually happening on the ground. But as he says here, a few weeks ago, a friend of mine in academia passed along a rambling, narcissistic social media post from one of these very public voices who bemoaned the lack of, quote, real niggas in the academy. It struck both of us as especially warped because the academy, for all its issues, is home. Am I frozen again?
No.
Okay, is home to many of the realest Black people I've ever encountered, deeply principled, underpaid, overextended, and dedicated to the nuts and bolts of scholarship for which they'll rarely, if ever, be rewarded. And that is absolutely the case at HBCUs. There are some of the realest faculty, committed people that you would ever meet, some who again have chosen at great sacrifice to their personal career and bank accounts to stay at these institutions because they want to work with these students and in these communities, but they're punished for it. Anyway, and again, I want to publicly beg Sister Janelle for a few more minutes, because there was this other piece that came out that is specific to an HBCU that I just want to quickly mention before we move on. The open letter from, you know, we're not really sure, anonymously from a Howard faculty member, an open letter to Nikole Hannah-Jones. And the short of it is, I won't go through it right now because it basically says everything I am saying everything it says. That while you are being welcomed in amongst all this fanfare, while you are being touted and praised for coming to the so-called Mecca, and for your work at the 1619 Project. That faculty at Howard University and many other, I would argue, at many other HBCUs are not well treated. So as they list here, just some of the issues that faculty actually have to deal with. Each year, Howard professors work as lecturers and must working as lecturers. That is, which is what most faculty at HBCUs and others are suffer at. They're not full professors. They're not tenured faculty. They're not even necessarily associates or assistants. They're working as lecturers or adjuncts, and they're being abused and paid by the course without benefits, without, that is the increasing.
That's criminal.
It is criminal, and it's the increasing trajectory of not only all universities, but HBCUs included. While I believe the president at Howard makes well over $1 million, the president at Morgan is last I saw well over 500,000. They're making money is being made, particularly by those at the top. But at the bottom, as this author says here, each year Howard professors working as lecturers must reapply anew for our jobs, complete the employment application again, submit the vitae, act like we've never met. Every single year we get a letter during the spring semester reminding us that our jobs are over as of May 15th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just abusive. Yeah, go ahead.
And we have to remember that HBCUs are really not, they may be historically Black attended, but they're not really necessarily Black run and operated. I was just looking at the board of trustees of Howard University. They got a lot of Black faces, but they got somebody here, managing partner at Fairview Capital, chief executive officer at RLJ Lodging, financial officer at Citigroup. Another person here, Barry Henry and Associates, Boyd Cosmetic Surgical, Sweet Green, somebody from CNN, somebody from PepsiCo, somebody from a realtor, and on and on. So you got people that are all invested in capital, which is about exploitation and capitalism, quite writ large, and it's about exploitation. And so that's why the president can make $1 million, and then they can string people along at 7 years at a time without giving them tenure and using them up just enough and then throwing them away, or making them try to renew their tenure or reapply for tenure, which is nonsensical. To do it every year, they have to reapply to. I think that article, that letter said that they had to reapply every year for their job, which is nuts.
Yeah.
And some of them didn't realize that they got the job back until they looked at the syllabus for the next year to see whether or not they were teaching the course, which is crazy. But we see why. When you look at the board of trustees, you'll see why. Lumina Foundation and others. It's just all kinds of capitalists and snakes and buzzards who are kind of running this thing. So that's why we're seeing what we're seeing there.
Yeah, and just like everywhere else, the HBCU is looking for can get, and often goes to the most conservative commercial outlets to get it. And then the reaction is, if you want more money, you have to attune your focus, your hiring, your politics. We're doing the fund, so anyway, unfortunately, HBCUs is sort of the broader point. They're not really, from my experience, and that's why I'm inviting others. Shortly after we go off the air today, I mixwhatilike.org. I'll have the post there. I'm inviting anyone with any HBCU experience. If you're as a parent, student, faculty, admin, share your story, answer the questions. By the way, some of the stories I'm getting are positive. I'm not trying to say it's all bad. But I am trying to say that it's not any different than the rest of the university experience at its core, particularly for those who work there. But anyway, all right, so let's do this. I'm going to take a very quick reset so that we could just have a quick pause break, catch our breath, and we'll come back with our next guest to get into some of her work and hear a little bit about what she's getting into with trying to expose more of her audience and us to the work of those on the left politically. So we'll be back in just a minute with host of the What's Left podcast, Janelle Jolly. Don't go anywhere here. I Mix What I Like, Black Power Media. And if we didn't get to it,
you're freezing up, brother.
Put it in the comments.
God damn. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, welcome back, everybody. I Mix What I Like Live, Black Power Media, and the host joining us now of Thank You for Correcting Me, What's Left to Do podcast, Janelle Jolly. Welcome, Janelle. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Dr. Ball. Hey, everyone. Black Power Media. Good to see you. Good to be here.
So, well, first you just let us know you have a tie-in for this, so this is great. So why don't we? I'll ask you to just jump in and start right there. And then I'll start to ask you about your work.
Sure. So just to give a little bit of context so people kind of understand the tie-in. So the podcast is called What's Left to Do. You can find us at what'slefttodo.com. And I talk to people from all across the left. I learn about their lives and their life stories and how that has helped them arrive at a leftist politic. And now that they're here, kind of how do you understand the world? How do you see things, and what's left to do? Kind of like, what is your area of activism or organizing? What is theory that you've read that is, particularly helpful in this moment? All sorts of things. It ranges the gamut. And my tie-in from your last segment is that not this coming week, but the following week, I'll be airing my interview with Dr. Josh Myers, who, as you know, is a professor of Africana studies at Howard University, and his I'll say focus or the focus of his activism or organizing that we discuss in his part 2. Yes, we are worth fighting for. That's right. I have that upstairs next to my bed. Still haven't opened it. That's another story. I'm going to get around to reading things again soon. But his area of focus, dialectically actually, is dismantling the university, and in particular truly building a Black university, which might sound a little odd as a professor, as a graduate and now professor of Howard University, but for many of the reasons that you and your former guests were speaking about, he elucidates why that's extremely urgent. The university as site of the reproduction of the racism that exists in society, the university as the kind of spearhead of gentrification in many neighborhoods and many communities, and particularly all universities, but particularly the Black university, as kind of experimental playground, if you will, for the proletariatization of professorship, as you discussed. Just the increasing rate of people who spent good money and a long time getting PhDs being subject to adjunct status, ad infinitum. It's real early, so I don't even know what the words are that are coming out of my mouth right now. But that will be a really interesting episode, and that one in particular with Dr. Myers, is in 2 weeks. So it was just, I was replaying our interview as you two were speaking in the last segment.
No, absolutely. I know Brother Kaba knows Dr. Myers. I've had a chance to engage with the brother on a number of occasions, including around the discussion around his book with Jelani Favors, who's a discussion. I didn't even get to finish this HBCU joint because I also wanted to get to, so maybe we'll come back to it, but because we've got to talk more about this here as well. Promise or Peril, The Black College Student in America by William Corson, which essentially is a white military state assessment of the potential for the Black student to become a revolutionary, and what impact and role that the Black student would play in a revolution. And it's, I think, essential for understanding how the state sees not only HBCUs, but the role of faculty, the role of students in education, et cetera, beginning with the understanding that Black people represent a counterinsurgency threat.
You're freezing again, bro.
Comcast cutting up today.
Yeah.
So frustrating. I can't even front. This is the most frustrating thing in the world. This is crazy frustrating.
Oh my God.
I don't understand what's going on. I apologize, everybody.
Okay.
I really don't. I'm incredibly frustrated by this. I can't even front. I'm pissed, actually. This is incredibly frustrating. But anyway, as I was trying to say, from
they don't like you talking bad about them. You started talking about you being pissed. You said you were pissed, and they were like, "Oh, you pissed? Well, let me show you pissed."
Don't make me laugh.
I mean, it's not good to laugh at it because he's already frustrated. But
he probably screaming at the top of his lungs right now.
All kinds of obscenities. And
that's right.
Going on. Well, welcome to the show. I didn't get a chance to. I was away for a second. I had to take a little short break here. But glad to have you with us, and I think Dr. Ball is going to be joining us back again. I guess he's coming back. Yeah,
I'm here.
You there? All right.
I thought for sure you would have thrown your laptop up against the wall. Oh dear. It's okay. We'll take it from the top.
I really don't. But the frustrating thing for me on this is that actually I don't know what the issue is, and I cannot seem to correct it. And it seems it has nothing to do with whatever I can do about it. So
no worries.
I'm totally at the whim of this platform for some reason. Anyway, so I don't know how much of what I was trying to say was heard, but let me just come back to that. Janelle, let's talk about the work that you do. You know, you outlined it a little bit with the podcast. Why did you start doing this? What is the origin?
Sure. That's a good question.
And what made you set on this? I guess it's a tour of some sort.
So that's a good question. Why beige rage? The origin story for What's Left to Do was basically it was born out of the political calamity of 2020. So I was coming off of, riding high. I'd like put my whole life on pause to volunteer full time for the Sanders 2020 primary campaign. I live in California, so that was a lot of work. The strategy for the campaign was, to make sure we won California, because that was the crown jewel. And riding high, we won California. It took a lot of work, and then the pandemic hit, and just what does this mean? What does this mean for, individually for everyone's health? What does this mean politically? Like, what's going on? And I was just extremely frustrated by the way that the Democratic primary concluded. I was extremely frustrated. Oh, we lost him again. I was extremely frustrated with the You back?
I'm here. Sorry about that. I'm here. I'm here. I'm listening. I am hearing everything and I'm paying attention. Sorry.
Okay. And I was extremely frustrated with the political response to the pandemic, particularly the fact that, with a raging pandemic, the feral Democratic Party elite managed to take Medicare for all off of the table, like at the moment when this is the most salient issue probably on most people's minds. They managed to just remove that from discussion and just go on about life as if, I don't know, as if their milquetoast policies were meeting the moment, which obviously they've not met the moment in decades, one could argue, but certainly not now. So it was kind of started out of that frustration, because while I'm kind of observing and trying to make sense of the nonsensical kind of political environment. At the same time, a lot of the kind of independent lefty media voices were just, I perceived them to be like extremely kind of defeatist and nihilistic. And I was like, okay, well, that's not it either, because a leftist politic, in my opinion, a leftist politic can't just be an aesthetics of grievance or mourning. It has to arm you with an analysis to be able to assess your condition, what's right, what's wrong, and also arm you with, a history of how to meet and try and defeat those challenges. So it was kind of born out of that, and also just I also just in general, like, I'm a very curious person. I if you leave me in a room with a wall, I'll start talking to it. So I was really interested in like kind of the stories of the people I was volunteering alongside of, because we're cheek to jowl every day for months, and I would entrust my life to these people, and I just know your name. I don't know how you got here, kind of how you see the world, and I don't have an understanding of you. So it kind of started out of those two kind of urges for me, and here we are.
No, right on. So who have you already interviewed, and who is
meaning like
who's
released?
Either one.
Sure.
You could tell us about the release, who's coming up, and what if any are some highlights from these discussions.
Sure. So Professor Jared Ball's episode came out this week. And just shameless plug, you are now my mother's, quote, favorite light bright. She is so happy that your life turned around and that you are where
I got
you
a
are
little
now.
Yeah, I got a little open in those stories. I wasn't sure how that was going to go, but
That's what he
I hope
told
it turned out all right. I have not heard it all. I'm a little afraid to.
Episode.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
What you mean you're afraid? You said it. It was you lived it. He's like, oh, no.
But hearing it hearing what I say is different from saying what I say.
That's fair. But I think you would. I think you'll like how it came together. You have a very compelling story, and I mean that's one of the reasons that I do this is because there's no one way to arrive at a leftist politic. Like I didn't know, obviously I didn't know before sitting down with you that you was on your Rick James as a wild ass little youngster. But further, I didn't know, I had no idea about your white Jewish mother's very radical outlook on the world that certainly imbued you with the ability to be as you are now. I certainly didn't know that, being in the Navy was radicalizing for you. Like I wouldn't have guessed this because in my kind of facile, yes, I did say favorite light bright, dealing the real, Mr. Dealing the real. I certainly, in my facile understanding of, what a leftist looks like, that gets disabused in the interviews because I wouldn't have guessed that you served in the armed forces. I certainly would not have guessed that your having done so helped to radicalize you. So that's the really interesting kind of illuminating part of my work. But his episode is out this week. You're not going to want to miss that because it is a trip from beginning to end. What's coming up in terms of episode releases? In the next couple weeks, there's going to be a little bit of it might feel a little jilting because next week coming up, I'm speaking with an activist. Her name is Melissa Byrne. She was another big Bernie person, but her particular area of activism is canceling student debt, an issue that is, near and dear to most people's hearts because, as you told me, the only reason you insist people call you Dr. Ball is because you're still paying for it. That's right. And that episode was one of the few episodes where I came away from that interview feeling like tangibly optimistic, if that makes sense. And it's a really interesting.
I know I didn't help with that.
No, you did, because you said you thought that we would see some things in our lifetime. I came away yours was more about like the optimism that comes when you engage a radical imagination, and that's needed. You can't create the future that you want to inhabit if you cannot first imagine it and presuppose it in your mind. So I came away feeling optimistic after speaking to you, but hers was a more kind of practical not practical, but hers was it felt a little bit more concrete because, and I think she might be right. I mean, you can't take anything for granted with, can I curse?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You can't take anything for granted with fucking Joe Biden in the White House. But I do believe that canceling student debt is going to, I think that's going to happen. I think that's going to be a midterm surprise. It could not, obviously it could not happen, but the metaphor that she used that was really interesting that I had not considered because I'm not an activist in the space, but she used this metaphor of a parking lot, and this parking lot it was a part of a larger strategy for the canceling student debt advocates to get cancellation. It might. They still have some work to do in terms of making it universal because right now the pause in student debt that we got from the CARES Act of 2020 under Trump, that covers most borrowers. But if I remember correctly, the statistic, it's from her, it's 33 million out of 45 million borrowers are covered, and there's a big generational divide. So they still have work to do in order to make cancellation universal, which we should all be invested in universal concrete material benefits for working people. But I think that it's going to happen. Don't cancel me if I'm wrong. And so there's canceling student debt next week. The week after that is dismantling
I
the
won't
university.
cancel you. Sorry about that. I won't cancel you. I would just say, I told you so, but I'm happy to be wrong. I mean, I would love to wake up and have you back on and say you were right. We don't have student debt anymore.
Sure.
But anyway, sorry, but you were going to, yeah.
I think if it happens, and it is an if, I don't want to oversell this like, oh, you can take that to the bank. Absolutely not. But I think if it happens, I think it'll happen in 2022. And it will be because the strategy here is to make the status quo, which is the pause and the interest rate going to zero, make the status quo permanent, because you don't want bills and ballots arriving at the same time. That would hurt Democrats in the midterms who are on a razor thin majority. They only, Republicans only have to pick up one, net seat in the Senate. So it would behoove them to, I don't know, defend their majority, but these people don't. They don't care. So
they wouldn't be able to have an excuse as to why they
don't have an excuse now.
But I'm just saying, but they would have even more of an excuse then than they do now for not doing the things that they don't really want to do in the first place.
Correct. Yes, you are right. And I fussed at her a little bit during the interview. I told her, look me in my eyes. You're mean to tell me you really do think that these people want to do the right thing on students. And she, she's in it more than I am because she's a player at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But she said she thinks it's going to happen. Again, it's not a given, but I think there's a good shot. So that was really interesting. That was a really illuminating conversation. The week after that, even though we were just talking about, free college and canceling student debt, we'll be talking with Dr. Josh Myers, about dismantling the university. And that is, he's just extremely brilliant. So that was a wonderful conversation. And some of the other interviews that I've done, I have a lot under my belt so far. I didn't know I had done so many when I was trying to get everything set up too long ago. I was like, oh, you've been at this for a while now. But I spoke to Malika Jabali. I spoke to her and released her episode maybe last week, and that was fascinating. A lot of her work is focused on all manner of Black things, but currently her work is on the Black working class in the Midwest, as that is kind of like a demographic that doesn't exist in the popular imagination. Like when we talk about deindustrialization and flyover country, everyone kind of harkens back to that Yauman image of the white factory worker. But hello, there are a lot of Black people in the Midwest who were disproportionately affected by deindustrialization, NAFTA et al., that are being ignored politically, and that is costing, the party that does so at their peril. So that was fascinating. Other people I've talked to are just involved in all manner of areas of like leftist contestation, some that I didn't even know existed. So I've talked to people involved in housing. I've talked to, union educators, people involved with labor organizing. Like one of my guests, she's still on leave from being a flight attendant to help organize Delta flight attendants and get them unionized. Whether or not that happens is, we'll see. Various people who work in electoral politics, a couple of politicians so far, and knock on wood, a couple more coming this summer. But there are all manner of areas that people are involved in and putting their hard work and effort into, because my hypothesis in starting this is that like there's not just one area or one thing that is going to help us create the future that we want to inhabit. There are many things, and so it's just like find a place to plug in for your thing, whatever it is, and be in solidarity with the other people you work alongside in order to win or make strides, or I don't know, however you want to put that.
Speaking of that,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, speaking of that, you mentioned working on the Sanders campaign, and there's some people who are very upset with him for kind of like not really pushing a lot of the things that he wanted to push. But for instance, Medicare for all, especially during the pandemic, he wasn't for forced to vote. He didn't really want to push that. What are your thoughts? As some of his former acolytes are pretty upset with him, but what are your thoughts on Bernie at this particular point?
Right now. I think I think a couple of things. On one hand, I think politically, that's not fair to say. I think that he is an individual in terms of him kind of shaking things up in the Democratic Party. I think he's almost a spent force, and what I mean by that is he's no longer the threat that he was when he was, running in 2016 and 2020, because he's an older man now. He still has quite a bit of influence on progressive or SOC Dem or leftist candidates that runs. He's stumping for Nina Turner. He goes to Kentucky to help what's my man Charles Booker campaign. So he still has juice, but I think he's mostly a spent force. That being said, I feel better about him holding the chairmanship that he has in the Senate. I feel good about that, because I mean, who the fuck is the alternative to be there? And I think that there are still areas where he can try and push to get for instance, he's working on getting the age of Medicare lowered in the human infrastructure part of the infrastructure bill, which, even though that's not adequate, because we need Medicare for all right now, that's not adequate, but that does help. One of my guests that I aired an episode with, Assemblymember Ash Kalra, he's a member of the California State House. He is leading our latest push for single payer in the state, AB 1400. And what I learned talking to him was like, it's a lot of what his work is right now with regard to that bill is like keeping his eye on what's happening federally so that he can amend the bill and we can have our best shot in getting it put through. Because let's say they lower Medicare to 60. Wholly inadequate, don't get me wrong. But if they lower Medicare to 60, that's a smaller delta that they have to make up in terms of taxes to pay for Medicare for California, or whatever you want to call it, AB 1400. So these things are not sufficient, but they're still good, because if California, and again, this is by no means a lock. Like I'm a member of SF Bernie Kratz. We're working with other political clubs in the state to build the movement for AB 1400 so that it has its best shot to get through, because Osh pulled it and he'll be reintroducing it in January. But if and it's by no means a given, because all of the major health people are located here, and they're terrible. But if California falls in terms of is the first domino bellwether for Medicare for all, other states will follow, and then it becomes a federal eventuality. Again, these things shouldn't take so long. We should have had Medicare for all in the 60s. Like this should not even be a conversation. But here we are, and we still have to find ways to fight.
But how is that different from, say, what people said about Obamacare, is that it's not perfect, but it's kind of it's inching us there. Now we've been 10,
that was
12 years down the line. But how is that different? How is what you're saying, proposing, different from that? Because we know that politicians they'll do the incremental thing, and then they'll kind of want to stay there. To your point, you made the point.
Sure, about status quo. Are you speaking about AB 1400 specifically, or
AB 1400 specific? I know you're saying that it could be a bellwether, but I'm saying how do we not keep it from being stuck in bellwether status in terms of potential bellwether status? I should say.
Well, I think tell me if I'm answering your question. I think that if AB 1400, and this will be even because what we're working on right now, that's just the policy bill. Like, so in January, let's say Osh is able to get it through taxation and whatever the other committees are, or whatever. Let's say that it happens. This is just the policy bill, and then there are a couple of other. Again, this is staging. There are a couple of other bills that would have to go through. But let's say it all happens. No, who cares how? But let's say it all happens, and California does get a single payer system. The California single payer system is not at all like Obamacare, because it's a single payer system. You're not being asked to buy your shitty little bronze plan in the marketplace. And I think, in terms of that being a bellwether, there is I think a non-zero chance that has an effect on inflow migration to California, and that makes politicians in other states nearby sit up and take notice. Like, we are losing part of our tax base to California because you can move to California now, and I don't know how they're going to do it. Let's say there's, a small payroll tax to pay for it, or a wealth tax. I'm not sure.
But how you going to get housing though in California? Because you got a big housing problem there. So you may get,
100%.
Medicare, but you might not have any place to stay.
Well, or you might have 5 roommates, but that might be a calculation that depending, is reasonable for some people to make. But in terms of that being a bellwether status, they're also working on a single payer effort in New York. But my guess, and I could be extremely wrong, but my guess is that has effect on inflow migrations, and that is what makes other nearby politicians take notice. Just like what happens, when states approve like lottery or casinos, like that then becomes the argument for other states nearby as well. People are leaving our state to spend their money, So that's my guess, but who knows how that'll shake.
So I think I agree with Dawn and others who pointed out that, I think Bernie is represented the sheepdog for the Democratic Party. And one of the reasons why I don't think we have Medicare for all or something more progressive is because of people like Bernie faking the funk.
What do you mean when you say that? I want to understand.
So very clearly, well, there's a lot I mean, but the short of it is, one, I never thought he gave a full-throated, honest defense of what socialism could look like in this country. And he allowed himself to be browbeat, and he become defensive around that term and softening it to democratic socialist. But ultimately, my point is that he never stayed in the fight long enough to push not only for his victories in the primary, one that was stolen, clearly stolen in 2016
and 20,
and 20, and then capitulated, and of course came in to support Biden, et cetera, and so forth, who we all knew wasn't going to give it.
Which he said he would do. He would support the nominee no matter what before it even took place. He pretty much threw his cards on the table and pretty much showed his hand.
So what I think by that is that what happens is all of the righteous radical energy that exists in the country, that and to your point, when you even asked just a moment ago, something to the effect, we have to support this. I forgot which position you were talking about, because as opposed to something worse, that because of all of the worsening conditions and righteous radicalism in the country, the establishment knows it needs to provide, at least symbolically, the outlet for that movement so that they don't go and form something else or support something else. So in this case, that the Democratic Party can maintain itself as the liberal end or representative of the ruling elite and play this two-party con game with us in perpetuity. So to do that, to keep people from breaking off and weakening support for the Democratic Party, or creating something new, creating new challenges, or maintaining a radical push around the defense of something like actual socialism, or at least Medicare for all. The idea is we'll give somebody like Bernie, we'll pretend to support him, we'll let his campaign go, and then as soon as it seems like he is going to get somewhere and get this kind of support, the establishment through the Democratic Party will undercut him, force upon us somebody like Biden or Hillary before that, and then we will, and then he will capitulate.
He'll tell his base to vote for the Democrat.
That's it.
Right.
That's
vote blue no matter who.
I take your points, and I'm not. I take your points, and I don't want to misrepresent myself as someone like I'm a registered Democrat because I live in California, and it's a one-party state. I'm not at all. I don't hold any true fealty to that party because fuck those guys. Like, they're the reasons that so much of the material deprivation that people experience is even like a reality. So I don't want to misrepresent myself as like trying to reinscribe some virtue and necessity for like a two-party system, because I would very much like that to just not be the case tomorrow, yesterday. But my question is how, and I take your points about him being a sheepdog. I don't know that I particularly agree, because I think, and I'm not speaking for him, obviously, but I think that was a part of strategy to be able to organize people to finally bring broad, redistributive, universal programs into the mainstream discussion, which which you kind of have to play that two-party game in order to get that message out. Like, even though he was in the primary in 2016 and 2020, and by rights should have gotten a decent amount of media coverage because he was running as a Democrat. He was almost completely blackballed from the mainstream media in 2016, and that's, as you know, that's where most people get their information and hear any sort of political discourse. It was a little different in 2020, but not by much. So you kind of use the bully pulpits that are there to organize people is my respectful defense, because if it were just a matter of candidates with like a clear, full-throated articulation of leftist politics, leftist universal redistributive politics, the Green Party would be further than it is. You understand what I'm saying? You kind of have to take the power that is in the streets, and a lot of that power, unfortunately, is with mainstream media, and that's why I think it's so good that we have these platforms.
But I think that I get your point, but I think that this is sort of the problem, that if more people who claimed, as Bernie and others have, that we need something beyond the Democratic Party, at least politically, if not as a structure, actually advocated that and stood on that, instead of saying we have to come back and work within this two-party system, to use the bully pulpit, as you just argued, I think we would be better off. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why the Green Party has not done better. Some of it is internal, some of it is all kinds of problems, but some of it is simply because people who would claim to support what the Green Party wants continue to come back to this idea that we have to work within the Democratic Party. And I'm saying that as a strategy doesn't work. So if Bernie had said, I'm an independent, and I'm going to run truly as an independent and build an independent alternative, that I think would have been more legit than what he's been doing. And that's why I think on some level, I've even though I didn't agree with them initially, I've understood and felt some empathy for former Bernie supporters who have felt disillusioned, who were saying, I thought we were representing that alternative push, but then all you did was say, no, let's go support Biden, who's offering none of what people were supporting Bernie for.
I understand because in 2020 anyway. Well, actually, no. That let's be honest. In 2016 and 2020, after all of the Michigas in 2016 came to light, I was disgusted and I wanted no part of it. And I lodged my personal protest with my vote, which one of your guests I watched recently. Your episode with Adolph Reed. He would take me to task for. And I did the same in 2020 because I could not countenance the I could not countenance the what I was being asked to do vis-a-vis vote for some. I put my life on hold for the Sanders campaign because of the issues, the platform, and here I'm left with someone who said in no uncertain terms, like, you will not get A, B, C, D things. Okay, well, I mean, then you're not representing me or my interests. So, I didn't vote for Biden. I mean, I obviously didn't vote for Trump. Don't be silly. But I wasn't one who fell in line. Again, not that it matters, because again, I live in California, so my shitty little vote doesn't count because of the electoral college. But I wasn't one of the ones who fell in line behind
the super delegates within the state.
That's right. That's right. So I take your point, and in the last two cycles I haven't at the top of the ticket voted for Democrats because it's just in 2016 I thought it was like a sick joke, no one's serious, like this is the choices being presented here are foolish, and then 2020 was like hold my beer, so it's like, well, okay, I don't know. So but I take your point.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, fair enough. I saw one question.
I just want to say something real quick too, because now you mentioned the point about where people get most of their information from media, and that's true still now. But people have mainstream media. Its viewership has plummeted because they don't have Trump anymore as somebody to.
But that's still the lion's share of.
I know. I get that, but I'm saying more people don't trust the media. So this
100%.
This is an
and the pandemic didn't help that.
Yeah, and it's an opportune time. Somebody like Bernie has a large enough profile where he can actually still draw a large number of people independent.
Well, and he does through his email operation. Like that was I think that was part of the way that he kind of built kind of like a shadow media operation was through the direct emails that he was sending to people, which I think is good. I don't think it still pales in comparison to if all you're hearing is the drumbeat of whatever the fuck the New York Times and Rachel Maddow is squawking about, then everything else gets drowned out. But there is I am seeing more daylight in terms of spaces for independent media to break through, because there's been such I mean, they've just fucked up the public will that they've had, not just recently, like I think most jarringly, with the run up to the Iraq War, but this has been a decades long kind of crapification of neutrality or facts in the mainstream media, and then they want to cry about fake news. It's like, okay, well, Judy Miller has not been banished from polite society, so don't talk to me about fake news, because you all have been kind of the biggest proponents of it. So like, buzz off.
Please, anyway, all the mainstream press has been long engaged in fake news long before Trump or anybody else. But so to Shirley's point, this is sort of my point. If I understood what Shirley was saying, the reason I'm so critical of Bernie and the types like that is because that's what I think does inhibit the building of an alternative party almost more than anything. So it's not that we're just standing, and I hope I'm not missing Shirley's context here, but I'm not saying I'm not advocating standing on the sidelines doing nothing. I'm saying I'm being critical of what's going on, because it makes it harder for us in the so-called margins to do that work. If people can then say, Jared, we don't need an alternative party because we got Bernie to go vote for.
I got you.
And I'm like, that's not going to go anywhere. So and
to your point, anyway, I was very angry in 2020. I thought there was a window of time where I thought the appropriate thing for him to, and I wasn't staff, I was just volunteer, like who am I? But I thought the appropriate or radical or revolutionary thing to do would have been to use like the beginning, kind of those beginning calamitous weeks of the pandemic, when kind of everything was basically about to be tied up with the primary because of turncoats like your man in South Carolina, what's his name?
Clyburn.
Yeah, like Clyburn and Lala, everyone, coalescing around Joe Biden. I thought that there was a short period of time where he should have broken off and started an independent run. I'm not sure if someone told, and I'm not sure about this. There might be rules about there's sore loser, laws or regulations about that in different states, but I thought that would have been the more appropriate thing to do. You still have kind of the energy and the attention of millions of people who were supporting you to break off and really force some concessions. He didn't do that, and he was never going to do that. But I thought that would have been the more appropriate kind of radical political move to use this crisis to really highlight the need for things like Medicare for all and a jobs guarantee and housing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The majority of people in this country, even Fox News did a poll that showed that the majority of the people that they polled, and these are Fox News people, are for all of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
You had somebody like me. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican, and I haven't voted for president since 1992. I haven't even thought about it, but yet I was almost thinking about voting for Bernie this year, or 2020.
Look, I did say I would have. Honestly, I'm with you on that, Kaba. Yeah. I would have, if Bernie had won the primary.
Yeah,
I would have voted for him. Yep, I think I would have. I'm pretty sure I would have.
But you told me at the end of our interview that you also said they would never let him have it. So
they wouldn't let him have it. I knew that. Right. I knew that.
He didn't even fight for it. He didn't even fight for it.
And that was what made it. That to me was the proof that he quit so early. But listen, unfortunately, because I have a hard out in about 25 minutes. I have a meeting I have to be at. I want to come back. I want to come back to these few more points about the HBCU thing. Sure. So Janelle, first I want to invite you to stick around for that. But I also want to make sure if there was anything that you didn't say about your work or anything that we have to cover. I want to, I don't want to, because I know we didn't plan on the whole Bernie Democrat discussion.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to take us down.
No, that's cool. I mean, in fact, we got to have you back. We got to do this again. We got to have.
Sure.
And there's more. Yeah. Anyway, but
your light skinned internet can't be acting up next time I come on. No, you got to run a speed test, my brother.
That's what I'm saying. See, this is what's so frustrating. Speed tests. I've run all the speed tests. The joint is so optimized. That's why I was telling somebody in the chat, it's not my upload speeds. My upload speeds are off. Everything is flying around. That's what I'm saying.
You might have an outage.
Everything else works.
Yeah.
Even the stuff I've shut off just in case. It works.
Well, white and light men can't jump, and white and light internet can't run.
We already know that's not true because what's my man's name? I forgot.
One exception. He's an exception.
There's not one.
He's an exception. Ain't no other.
Steph Curry can shoot threes.
But he can't jump. He can shoot.
No, he cannot jump.
All he got is a 3-pointer.
That's right.
That's all he needs.
First of all, Vance, what's it? Larry
you can't even think of him.
I'm going back historically. Larry Nance was, or what's his name?
Father?
The Skywalker was who?
Larry Nance, the father or the son?
Both of them were slam dunk champs or competitors.
But the father wasn't all that light.
What in the son?
Just
in the son, then.
Just
in the son. And how about all the Alonzo Ball and all of them? Stop front. You got my name and everything.
It's about the light, about the beige rage is on.
He gets some rage. He gets
beige rage on the rampage.
Goodness,
bro.
I just don't think I need to be abused.
Lighten up, brother.
For the choice. I was going to say something else. Never mind. Let me just stop. I'm about to go. Kenny Walker. That's who I'm talking about.
Skywalker.
That's what I'm talking about. The Skywalker. That's what I'm talking about.
But he ain't have nothing on that dark skinned Michael Jordan though. Melanin man.
I mean, but I'm not. I didn't.
I'm just messing with y'all, man. I'm just playing, man. Just lighten up.
Oh, bro. Man, I got so many jokes, man. I got, what? One of these days, I would just leave it there. Like J. Rue said, one day. One day. But check this out. So there were a couple things that I wanted to highlight from this book. And again, shout out to John Bracey, Dr. Bracey, for encouraging that we read this book. The not so dark skinned John Bracey, by the way. Light skin can read though. If I can't jump, I can read. How about
they can
that?
read? They can read and write.
Okay, all right, there we go. All right, fair enough.
Light can write.
let me just do it this way. The book starts. So first of all, Corson, who took a job as a professor at Howard University so he could study Black students and write this book, comes out of the Marines, comes out of Vietnam, and he brings a discussion with a Black soldier that he had while there, in comparing Black soldiers in Vietnam to Black students in the United States, in measuring each for their fidelity to the state and their potential to engage in revolution. And I thought so again, that's why I was saying they already recognize the counterinsurgency potential that we don't necessarily recognize, or has been suppressed in our political consciousness. But as he writes here, there is no assurance that the Black student will continue to reject revolution. He is skeptical of American society's ability and pessimistic about its willingness to deliver on past promises made to Negroes. If his skepticism becomes conviction and his pessimism becomes desperation, revolution might well be a plausible alternative. And the reason why I wanted to read that section where he makes reference to the conviction. And Janelle, hold on. I'm hearing an echo, so I'm just going to mute you real quick, if you don't mind. Forgive me. If his, or maybe it wasn't even you. I think Kaba might be you. My bad. Hold on. My apologies. If his skepticism becomes conviction, and I just want to remind people, when we talked a few weeks back about George Creel and the Creel Commission and propaganda in the early 20th century around World War I. What Creel talked about was conquering the convictions of the target audience with your propaganda. So what a lot of what Corson ends up doing throughout the rest of this book is focused on the state's ability to propagandize. This is actually perfect, given our last conversation, to propagandize, not using necessarily that word, Black students and society to if not meaningfully, in a more symbolic way, present opportunity or hopefulness in American society to Black people to prevent revolution. In other words, the Black university in particular needs to be used to offer hope to a desperate Black population that might turn to revolution, that might turn away from a controlled classroom environment to the uncontrolled outer environment of Black revolution and struggle. So when he makes reference to Stokely Carmichael and Huey Newton, and even Dr. King to a certain extent, he's talking about them in contradistinction to what the university as an institution can play in managing this anger and potential revolutionary force. So just to draw a quick parallel, then I'll stop and invite a response, is that this is how I'm seeing, Janelle, this question of Bernie in that same context, that the university, in this case, the HBCU, is used specifically to promote the symbolic hope of entry into society for Black people, in the same way that I'm saying Bernie was meant to electorally for Black people and writ large, all so-called radicals and progressives in this country who would want an alternative that doesn't necessarily exist. So I'll take a breath there, and if you all have a thought or anything, I
don't know if I have anything to add. Go ahead.
Well,
no, I was going to say, go ahead.
Well, I think that it's just kind of like what, an extension of what we were talking about earlier, and that is, I mean, when you have your Oprahs and you have your Obamas and people like that who are kind of, put Nikole Hannah-Jones, she got a gig at Howard and all of this. And again, it engenders hope in an otherwise hopeless situation, because people, I'll say this. I have a daughter and a family member who I love. We were down in Florida and they gave my daughter a children's book on Kamala Harris.
No.
How did that go?
This is this is a family member I love, and I just said, Kamala Harris is not somebody that I want my daughter to look up to and to emulate, because she does not represent our people. And I just left it at that. And then, of course, the question came, and then I went into the whole her shenanigans over there with locking up, parents in California over there where you are, Janelle.
That's right.
Locking people up. I went into the One West Bank situation where she let Steve Mnuchin off, who worked on the Republican side. I went into, and again, the propaganda is so strong though that it outweighs the reality and the fact. And these are facts. I encourage people, don't believe me, look it up for yourself.
That's right.
Please look it up. Don't believe me, look it up for yourself, and you'll see.
By the way, this is perfect. This is perfect because look at how Howard was promoted and rebranded in light of what Kamala Harris is being promoted and rebranded as to be. That she came out of the Mecca, that she represents Black people just like Howard University and so on. Sorry, Janelle, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that. I mean, outside of my discussion or my interview with Josh, because he and I were a year apart at Howard, there's been this kind of slow, but then also quickening, even more extreme neoliberal infestation, like at the top at Howard of late, and I can't help but think that was accelerated by the election of Kamala as VP, and it's depending on who you ask, it's undermining like why Howard should exist and for whom. You look at the Felicia Rashad appointment as the dean of fine arts, and I at this point, I think the next rabbit that they have to pull out the hat is going to be like an endowed professorship for Lin-Manuel Miranda or something ridiculous that like plays well in the media, might juice applications and kind of justify an increase in tuition, but it's
actually. I'm sorry, but actually a part of the new program, the fine arts program with Felicia Rashad, part of the thing that was that has been, it was inspired a lot by Chad Boseman, because what he wanted to do was bring in professionals or people who are big names to come in to draw people to the department, and also to add more to its cachet.
Sure, and I understand that, but what happened? But there used to be a tradition of people who came to Howard specifically for acting, an Ossie Davis, a Ruby Dee, who were not just actors seeking commercial success, but they were actors in that vein of art as tool of resistance. Like you hear interviews with Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee from a while ago talking about having to balance auditions and going out on the picket line with workers or going to a protest, and I don't know that you get that with
that's what I'm
you're
saying.
Chasing cachet.
That's what I'm saying. That's the point. That's what's happening at Howard. They're doing that specifically to get away from that tradition and go into the whole commercialism.
And listen, as somebody who went into a level of mourning as I watched live as Ahmad Rashad proposed to Felicia Ayers Allen on TV back in the day, who had an admiring crush on that woman for a long time.
You're not alone.
I know I'm not. I mean, I'm clearly not. She has gone from Tyler Perry films to defending Cosby to taking this position when historically, as others have pointed out, funnily enough, because the in this Corson book, he talks about Howard University's very reactionary conservative response to Black rebellion. And it was, if I'm not mistaken, if I haven't remembered the story correctly, it was Debbie Allen, Felicia's sister, who called home during the Howard protests and was told by her parents, "We didn't send you there to protest. We sent you there to go to school. Now get your tail back in the classroom." So in some ways, it's perfect that it seems like it's like a perfect compliment that Felicia would come back at a time of still Black material suffering, inequality, to come back to a university, to an institution that is by design here to quell potential rebelliousness.
But and again, in that vein, to the point of the other book that you were holding up by Dr. Meyer, if Josh watches, he's gonna be like, "Why did you keep mentioning my name?" There's always a counter. There's a countervailing energy that the Black child brings to Howard, and I mean,
that's
he was
my point.
Yeah. And so it's not a. So it's a struggle. It's a dance. I think I have to have hope that the students desiring well, what Josh said was that during 2020 was a terrible year for everyone, especially college students, trying to have their studies and trying to understand all of the other things that were happening, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. And he was saying, when he just kind of did informal polls of his students, his 2020 students, and like asked them, are you getting what you came here to get? Because in moments like a George Floyd, he was saying, you throw the syllabus out and you walk your students through this moment, you try and ground it, but you shouldn't have to completely abandon your syllabus to put the student in the current moment and in kind of this a Black understanding or context for what they're understanding. Like your syllabus shouldn't be so far from the needs of the children. And he was like that. And he said of the poll, he said the majority of the students said that they only could get that in his class. That was not something that was just available to them throughout the rest of their studies. And that's a difference from even when I was there. And I'm old now, but I'm not that old. That used to be something available to you throughout all of your studies, no matter what the discipline was.
So this is where, and this is something I've slightly disagreed with my brother Dr. Jelani Favors and his work on this, and people can go back and find our interviews, and we'll have to have him back to talk more about this. But that there is, I think it is a mythological misrepresentation of the past of the HBCU. That as Favors points out in his work, that well-rounded syllabi and instruction that Black students used to get at HBCUs was based on a different sort of as I would describe it, not necessarily a revolutionary response, but a way of saying of just a general, we want to care for the Black community. We want to help the Black community recover its most immediate traumatic situation. But the idea of turning Black people into revolutionaries that would radically change society going forward, that's not what was going on. And that's why I've always heard the same thing. When students come to my class, the response is too often, I think, Dr. Ball, what we're getting here, we're not getting in other classes. That's your general approach is what we think we should be getting elsewhere, and we're not getting it. And this is the point that I think Corson is getting at. So to where you started, Janelle, with this whole thing of what Black students bring, this is a permanent. It's not a singular event. It's an ongoing process, as is revolution, as is repression. That's what he's talking about here. And he goes into great detail about how a revolution might occur and what the state and the Black university needs to do to prevent it. And I think that is his version has won. His version is what is successful, so that when the students that Dr. Myers is talking about in his work pop off and do what they do, there is already a prepared response, which starts with the symbolic projection of what an HBCU is, whether it's a different world or marching bands or choirs or step shows.
Hey, don't talk about the choir, bro. I was in a concert choir. No, you can't.
I love the choir. I love step shows. You can't
talk about the concert. Concert choir is different. The concert choir is revolutionary. You can't be bagging on the concert choir, bro.
That's not what I was intending to do.
Shout out to the bass section. Yeah, brother. Just saying. I'm about to get up out of here like Deion Sanders, man.
I don't want that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just simply saying that instead of promoting HBCUs as locations for intellectual, critical exploration, they're promoted for those reasons. They're promoted with the Felicia Rashads and even the Nikole Hannah-Jones, whose work most people won't read. So
that's how most of us. That's how we're sold. I mean, people think, okay, Black people just get a celebrity. Yeah. Black,
but you can't. But you're asking. Yes, to your point. Yes, it's all bullshit. It's all terrible. But you can't separate a Black institution from the context in which it exists, and this is happening everywhere across the board. So of course it's going to happen here. But that's why it's even more incumbent for spaces like these to be available. For people,
and that's simply why I'm calling it not a different world. Right. That's all I'm saying. You are exactly right.
And it makes it
I'm
more
just simply-
insidious
yeah,
because people go to those spaces thinking that they're going to get something that is going to be, you know,
and you can still, you can still
Nobody
get
got
it.
G
You just
checked.
have to you have to maybe search for it a little bit more, and it might be outside of your formal studies. You can still get it. It's just it's not given to you necessarily as it shouldn't. It's not given to you freely, perhaps as it should be. You just have to. There's a little bit of like maroonage going on at the Black college that
I agree with.
You can hold on to.
Absolutely, and that's simply my point.
Yeah,
it's not a different world. We need maroons everywhere. We have to be maroons everywhere, even at Black universities. So listen, Janelle, thank you very much for joining me. I can't wait till you come back. I want people to follow you at What's Left to Do. Please go to What's Left to Do on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever, right?
What'slefttodo.com has it all. You can subscribe. Yep. There we go. And we're working on getting more transcripts up, but all of the episodes are available on the website and wherever you get your podcast. And Dr. Ball knows this, I go deep with my interview guests. So there's a part 1 and part 2 for every episode, or most episodes. And you will find things out about people that you did not know.
That's
very interesting things.
That is a fact. I wasn't ready for how open I was going to get, but that was that anyway. I was so tempted today. I was going to hit you with a Dr. CBS type question to be like, so what was it like to interview me?
It was interesting.
I'll just play it.
He goes, I actually don't want you to answer that question. No, I enjoyed our interview. It was you were very gracious with your story and your time. I very much enjoyed our interview because I wasn't expecting a lot of the different aspects of your story that were there. So I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much. I can't wait to have you back on. We got to do this again and talk more about HBCUs. I didn't even finish what I was going to get to, but that's all right. That's why it's a long range project.
My bad. Tweet me. I'll tweet you back.
That's it. It's all good. We have many more shows to do, so it's not that deep. Brother Kaba, thank you very much again. Do you know already what's happening on your show Monday, or do we have to just show up and find out?
Oh yeah, you're going to have to show up and find out. I'm doing the Black thing, doing it last minute, putting stuff together.
Got you. Just checking.
Yeah. But I will have a brother on who's repatriated to Ghana, Brother Diallo, somebody that a lot of people know about. He's going to talk about he's going to talk about repatriating. He's doing some things over there, so we're going to talk about that.
He left already?
Oh, he's been gone. Yeah, he's back and forth here and there, but he's been gone for like 2-3 years now. He's been out.
Oh wow, that's the lag I'm in there. So my internet was lagging. My life lag is about 3 years behind too. So there it is. I'm just all lagged up.
You got to get you some dark skin internet, brother.
I do. You're right. That's it. I need to get. I guess I need my and shout out to the Luke Mons. I need some divinely melanated internet. Hey, on that note, thanks everybody. Peace if you're willing to fight for it, like Fred used to say. We'll catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like and more on Black Power Media. Stick around. A lot more coming up on the channel. Please check it all out. Like, share, subscribe, join all that stuff. Thanks, everybody. Peace, everybody. Take care. Yes. Catch you next time. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.